let's talk about this case. Hey, actually, this is another. Well, this is a case out of Minnesota. So it's a case involving a 911 domestic call. We're not going to read the whole thing because it's a little heavy, but there's a couple trending points I think are, applicable to our audience nationwide.
All right.
So, 911 call.
Okay.
The female says that her ex-boyfriend had strangled her and he was pounding on the door. Well, I guess you have to, pound on the door first and then he got in, right?
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So dispatch also relayed the statement to us while we were en route. So it seems like a pretty hot call, right? It's probably like a code call where you're doing license sirens. Upon arrival, the female victim said that she was in her vehicle, which was parked on the street. She provided an officer a statement that was consistent to one she provided to dispatch. So it's kind of indicating that she's maybe a truth teller, not something, she's not making this stuff up. She also had marks around her neck that she said the ex-boyfriend impeded her breathing.
Okay.
So strangulation, right?
Definitely.
Also, she had marks around her neck consistent with being strangled.
All right.
They took photos and so forth. Now, at this point, the officers felt they had probable cause for felony domestic assault. However, not everybody agreed. The ex-boyfriend was not on scene at this point.
All right.
Okay. Do you believe, with the facts that I've given you, that we have probable cause?
Absolutely.
Why? I mean, it's one person accusing another person of a crime.
And that's something that when we inherently talk about domestic violence, for some reason in our profession as police officers, I feel like sometimes we put it on a different pedestal, a different analysis for some reason, and I've never figured out why.
Well, can I tell you what I think? Why is I think that cops have, with a lot of experience, have come across situations where they have learned later that one of the victim was lying.
Get out.
I know. And they are now cautious, but that's the problem too, isn't it? We start painting broad brushes.
Right.
And we start saying, hey, because I found, let's say a female, for example, since I found a previous female that had lied against her ex-boyfriend to get him in trouble for something, now I'm going to disbelieve victims unless I see hard proof evidence. And that's what that's what they want. They want concrete evidence.
Absolutely.
Because I guess the naysayers are saying she could have done it to herself.
Could she?
Of course she could have.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily our job at this point, right?
I think if we take into some of the things that are going on here, you've got a 911 call, which is usually the emergent line. It sounds like there's real-time information being provided to the call taker.
Okay.
I've just been strangled. My boyfriend's banging on the door. Maybe they hear the banging on the door outside.
And like in dispatch?
Yeah, from dispatch.
I got you.
Some of those things that they can corroborate hearing it, that real-time information that's going on. It doesn't go into explain too much, but the female upon the officer's arrival has now distanced herself. She's put herself in a car away to show that I want to get away from this guy.
Oh, right. Okay. That's actually good.
I think that's something to take into consideration when we start talking about the T to O to the C, the totality of the circumstances, what all is going on, all these facts and circumstances. And they meet her, it doesn't say in here, but what was her demeanor? Was she, oh, hey guys, how's it going?
Yep.
Or
crying,
distraught, crying, disheveled, mess. Who knows? But those are observations that are
intoxication too.
Intoxication,
not intoxicated.
Yeah, not intoxicated. Aware, coherent. All these factors of what's going on. And sometimes when I teach domestic violence, I go, don't forget that, contrary to some belief, we're human beings as police officers. When somebody's lying to you. You can get a really true gauge of a person through their emotion and what's going on. Now you throw in this factor of she's telling you I was strangled.
Yep.
And you've got physical evidence around the neck that corroborates the story. So that to me is very compelling. You're talking about fair probability, but I think we're way past fair probability on this. And what's interesting, as cops, we're always looking for a suspect confession. You're looking for injuries.
Yep.
Consistent with the story.
Yep.
Or a corroborating disinterested third party. Well, I saw it happen. And that's kind of like what we base all this on here.
It helps, yeah.
But we actually had a case that came out in Nevada that talked about, what if you don't have all three of those? What if you truly only have a he said, she said, which sometimes you do.
Yeah.
And I'm granted, maybe there'll be a broken dish on the floor or some things that help tell a story. But what if you really have that he said, she said? And it's the words from the court case, and I wrote down here, is facts sufficient. If you have detailed facts sufficient to cause a person to develop probable cause, then you have it. But that takes again, he's not there to tell his side of the story on that, but is her story believable? Yeah.
And you know what? I got to tell you, Mike, I think we go down a very dangerous path when we start becoming the arbitrators of who's telling the truth, and just
Right.
no, not even like, hey, we have evidence that they're lying. Obviously, if we have evidence that they're lying, we may have to submit this to the DA's office for consideration or something like that. But when we start saying, yeah, I think she's lying because I don't have any independent, witnesses and so forth, that's not quite what probable cause requires. And also, Minnesota, like many other states, is a shell arrest.
Most
And
are.
when we start basically saying, yeah, we're not going to arrest because it's a he said, she said, she said, well, what could happen if she gets hurt?
Oh, of course, right?
And we have to relieve. And now the cops' ass is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that, and I just look. I mean, at the end of the day, you are allowed to presume a victim is telling the truth. Now, have you ever heard of a case called, I think, is it California versus Neverett or Neverett versus California?
Yes.
But either way, right?
Right.
Have you heard about this Neverett case?
I have.
Doesn't Neverett have actually help us here
It does.
with the 911 exception?
Real-time information. And so the case we're talking about here is California, on one of the highways in California. And they call, lady said, I almost got run off the road. This guy's driving recklessly.
Maybe like a drunk driver.
Drunk driver. She was concerned. She almost got run off the road. So she calls, again, real-time information.
Yep.
It's happening now. She's projecting future harm. Hey, I'm concerned. I almost got ran over. I'm worried about other people getting cracked into by this guy.
Yep.
They call this information in, and I think it was 5 miles down the road, CHP picks up the vehicle.
Okay.
So that, they projected the information that was happening to that person. It wasn't, she didn't call her husband to tell her, he called us later on. It's happening right now. Now, I asked you this the other day. Who is the most famous California Highway Patrol officer?
I want to say
ever?
Ponch.
Poncherella, 100%, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? I think it's Ponch, not Baker. John Baker? Nah.
No, people are going to remember
Def-
Ponch way
definitely
more.
Ponch,
Yeah.
is the hair, right?
Yeah.
So they get behind it here, and they end up making the stop on this and discover a bunch of weed in the trunk there. So when we take all these facts in here, it's very much comparison to what we have here.
Okay, so I think to me, when I think about Neverett, I think about basically it's called a 911 exception. It's this idea that when people call 911, you can also presume that they're being reliable because they should understand that if they lie to police and like they make this whole thing up, they can get charged with a false report. So look, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I am comfortable as an attorney and as a practitioner in the business. I'm comfortable taking a victim's word, and unless you have contrary information, and rolling with it. And in fact, the law says that as much. It's a shell arrest of probable cause. It does not require certainty. It requires a fair probability that a crime was committed against them, and that person is a protected domestic relationship. The other thing is that the officer. So look, this whole verbal only, no independent proof. That's one factor.
Right.
And also, Mike, if he doesn't want to stick around and tell his side of the story, the fact that he's probably gone on arrival, does that indicate a little bit guilty mind?
It sure does.
All right. The second thing is they thought that he was maybe in the home, and they asked to search for him. And this changed the story a little bit too. But she says, no, he's gone. I don't want you searching my home. Ah, man, can they go in and look for him?
No.
Yeah, and also, do you think that I don't know. I mean, it's a tough situation. If you believe her, I guess that, but if she's now covering for him and you believe that you have evidence that, let's say his car is nearby, that starts it starts eroding her veracity. Why would this person that just put maybe inside the house, and she wouldn't want to make sure the guy's not there? So that's all we're going to answer for that question. It's a little too, there's some more stuff there, but I think we answered what helps our audience.